الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الحبيب المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ما بعد. قال سبحانه وتعالى إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال سبحانه وتعالى والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. Respected ulama, my respected elders, my brothers, my sisters and my little ones, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After praising the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I begin as always by first thanking you, my host, for giving me this opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accepts these efforts of yours in listening to this message and implementing this message in your daily lives and conveying it to those whom Allah did not give the tawfiq to participate in this blessing gathering. As I pray to the Almighty Allah that Allah accepts these efforts of mine in delivering this message. My young friends, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. That Allah, He doesn't look at your faces, who you are, what you are, where you come from, where you originate from, whether you're a Pakistani, Indian, Bengali, Gujarati, whether you're an Arab, a non-Arab, or whether you're black, white, blue or green. Allah does not look at your faces. However, what Allah looks at is إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. He looks at your deeds. And He looks at your hearts. And the whiter the heart, and the purer the heart, the more beautiful the heart is. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The more dear this individual is to the Almighty Allah, the more this individual is loved by Allah, and the more his ranks are elevated. Look at Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. What was the status of Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu in the days of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the eyes of the kuffar? Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had no status. And as a result of this, because he was the weakest from amongst them, the kuffar would persecute him by day and they would persecute him by night. Because they knew they could do whatever they want and there was nobody to raise a voice, nobody to come to his rescue. In the eyes of the kuffar, Bilal Habashi was a slave from Ethiopia. Yet in the eyes of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Makkah was conquered, and our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam returned with the Sahaba, and he returned to that very city in which he was born. He was the one that was called to climb the most holiest site of the believers, the house of Allah. And Bilal came and he climbed the house of Allah with his black skin. And he stood on the house of Allah, in spite of the fact that the great Arabs were there in Makkatul Mukarramah with their pure lineage. The likes of Abu Bakr was there, the likes of Umar was there, the likes of Uthman, Ali, Talha, Zubair, the Ashari Mubashara, the people that received glad tidings of paradise, they were all there. On whom did Allah and His Rasul bestow this honor? When all the Quraysh in their hundreds and thousands were there witnessing Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he climbed the house of Allah and he called out, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, that Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. And it wasn't just restricted to this. Sayyidina Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu relates a very beautiful hadith. He says that our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Uritu fil Jannah, I was taken to paradise and I was shown the blessings in paradise. And whilst I was in paradise, I saw the wife of Sayyidina Abu Talha radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Then all of a sudden, as I was in paradise, I could hear the sound of footsteps in paradise. It turned out to be Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was walking before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in paradise the night or at the time Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam was shown paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at the color of your faces. Look at Sayyidina Salman. What was Salman? Salman was a Persian. And what was a Persian in comparison to the Arabs in those days when racial prejudice was flowing in their blood? So much so that these people, because of racial prejudice, they would fight with one another and they would kill one another and they would go to war and keep on fighting for years on end. Yet Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his status in the eyes of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was such that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam declared, Salman minna ahl al-bayt, that Salman is from the family of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Where was the great Imam Bukhari from? My friends, that man was not even an Arab. He was from one of the former Russian states, Bukhara. Did you ever ponder over the life of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi? Where was Salahuddin al-Ayyubi from? Again, my friend, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi was a non-Arab. He was a Kurd from Kurdistan, the north of Iraq. Where was Imam Abu Dawood from? From Sijistan. Where was the very late Maulana Ilyas rahmatullah alayhi from, who achieved so much in such a short time? Somewhere from India. Allah, my friends, doesn't look at the color of your faces. He looks how pure the heart is. The purer the heart, the more this individual is loved by the Almighty Allah. My friends, we need to learn there are certain believers. Allah in general loves all the believers. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna Allah idha ahabba abdan a'tahu al-iman. When Allah loves a particular individual, He gives him this gift of Iman. He doesn't give this gift of Iman to anyone. Having said this, there are certain believers from amongst the believers, they, my friends, are so dear to the Almighty Allah that they receive the divine love. Not only do they receive the divine love, they receive this thing called qabuliyat, this thing called acceptance. And they are the people throughout history, and you don't need to take my word for it. Throughout history, those people that received the divine love of Allah, and they received with this divine love the acceptance, they are the ones that made a difference. They are the ones that were elevated by Allah, and they are the ones whom we still remember to this very day. Sayyidina Abu Haneefa radiallahu ta'ala relates a hadith. He said that our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna Allah idha habba abdan da'a Jibra'il. When Allah loves a person, He calls Jibra'il. And He says to Jibra'il, oh Jibra'il, I love this person, I want you to love him also. Sayyidina Jibra'il begins to love this particular individual. And then Sayyidina Jibra'il, he calls in the heavens, and a call is made that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so, you also love him. And then all the inhabitants of the heaven begin to love this individual. And then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ثُمَّ يُودَ لَهُ فِي الْقَبُولِ. Then acceptance is placed for this person on the land, and all the people embrace him. All the people begin to love this particular individual that is being loved by Allah, by Jibra'il, and all those within the heavens. Whoever Allah gave His special love, His divine love, and His qabuliyat, my friends, throughout history, these are the individuals, irrespective of where they've come from, whether they were black, white or blue, irrespective which caste they belong to, they are the ones that made the difference, and they are the ones that are remembered and followed to this very day. Look at Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Look at where Umar was radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and where the divine love and acceptance took him. Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu had made firm intentions to kill our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So firm was this intention that he had a sword in his hand, and he was now making his way to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that today there will be no man called Muhammad, there will be no book called Quran, and there will be no religion called Islam. And when the divine love came and the qabuliyat, the very man that wanted to put an end to Islam, Allah, through him, that one individual that wanted to put an end to Islam, Allah made him a means of guidance for millions and millions of people around the globe. And so much was achieved in his era, which has never been achieved in any era thereafter to this very day. Look at the young Bukhari. My friends, for those of you that do not know, Imam Bukhari as a child was blind. He could not even see. Now, what hope was there for a blind child 1200 years ago? What hope was there for a blind child 1200 years ago? My friends, the reality is there was no hope. And as a result, his mother would cry by day and by night. And she would ask the Lord of the Arsh and Kursi to restore the eyesight of her son. And when the divine love came and qabuliyat came, the very child for whom there was no hope 1200 years ago, he is the one, when the divine love came, that became Amir al-Mu'mineen fil Hadith. He became the commander of the faithful with regards to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in spite of the fact that there were many great scholars in his time, before him, after him, and there were many scholars that had written a book containing authentic hadith, and only authentic hadith, the Sahih of Ibn Khuzaymah, the Sahih of Ibn Sakan, the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim, the Muntaqa of Ibn al-Jarud. My friend, his book, the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, was the one that Allah chose and gave qabuliyat, gave acceptance, as a result of which the Siwadul A'zam, the greater part of the Ummah, has always, for the last 1200 years, in their millions, in every era to this very day, in their millions, have been benefiting from the book of Imam al-Bukhari. What was Bishr ibn Hafi rahmatullah alayh? He could barely keep his legs straight due to intoxication. And when the love of Allah came, and the divine love came, and the acceptance came, such was the condition of Bishr Hafi rahmatullah alayh, that his name amongst the masses was like the name of a prophet. Okay, just like the name of a prophet is on the tongue of every woman, every man and every child, the name of Bishr Hafi rahmatullah alayh in his era was on the tongue of every woman, every man and every child. On one occasion he was asked with regards to this, and Bishr Hafi rahmatullah alayhi said, "Hada min fadlillah," this is from amongst the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he explained on one occasion, he was walking and he saw a piece of paper. And on this piece of paper was in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it was covered with dirt. He says he picked this paper up, this piece of paper, and he cleaned it to the best of his ability, and he placed it inside his pocket. He says, at that time I only possessed 2 dirhams. These were my worldly possessions. And I went there and then to a perfume seller. And with all of what I had, these 2 dirhams, I purchased the best itr I could possibly do with these 2 dirhams. And I perfumed this piece of paper that had the name of Allah written on it. I went home and I placed it on a high place out of the respect for the name of Allah. He says, that night I went to sleep. I saw the Almighty Allah in my dream, and He was saying to me, "O Bishr, just as you took care of my name, I will elevate your name in the dunya as well as the akhirah." Look at Fudail ibn Ayaz. Fudail ibn Ayaz was a notorious bandit. People were afraid of him. He had a reputation. And when the divine love came and acceptance came, the same Fudail ibn Ayaz that people would dread, he received the title Abidul Haramain. Abidul Haramain, the worshipper of the harams, the 2 harams. One of those that received a great portion of this divine love. And he received a great portion of this thing called qabuliyat. This thing called acceptance was none other than our Imam, the Imam of the believers, Imam Abu Haneefa rahmatullahi alayhi. From the Khairul Qurun, the best of all times, to this very day, from the time he died to this very day, my friend, there are over 12 to 1300 years have passed. And in spite of the fact there were many scholars in his time and after his time, and there were many schools of thought, the founders of which were great muhaddithin and great fuqaha, this is the school of thought that Allah chose a cut above the rest. And this is the one that Allah elevated, and this is the one that Allah gave the acceptance. As a result of which, for the last 1300 years, my friends, this is no jakanori, this is a fact. Siwadul A'zam. The Siwadul A'zam, the majority of the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the last 1300 years, and for many years to come, have and will follow the fiqh of Abu Haneefa rahmatullahi alayhi. From laymen to great masters. Such masters that each and every one of them was a worthy of a school of thought on his own, and is worthy of a lecture on that personality himself. Who? Imam Muhammad followed the school of Abu Haneefa. Imam Yusuf followed the school of thought of Abu Haneefa. Imam Zufar, he followed the school of thought of Abu Haneefa. The great Imam Tahawi, and my friends, these personalities that I'm making a mention of before you, you just have to study their lives to realize how much knowledge these individuals possessed. How much knowledge. Imam Tahawi followed the fiqh of Abu Haneefa. Dawood at-Ta'i was such a man that he fasted for 40 years. Allahu Akbar. And how did he fast? In such a condition that his own family members did not know that this man was fasting. Such sincerity that his own family members, his own wife and children did not know he was fasting. Because when he would leave from home, he would take his lunch, and on the way he would donate it to the fuqara and give it as sadaqah. He followed the fiqh of Abu Haneefa. I'm sure you've heard of the great Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, Allah gave him an ajib personality. He was an all-round master. An all-round master. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was that person that he was the teacher of Imam Bukhari. And Abu Usama says with regards to Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak that his status amongst the muhaddithin, the masters of hadith, was like the status of the Amir al-Mu'mineen amongst the people. His status amongst the masters of hadith was like the status of the Amir al-Mu'mineen amongst the people. This is who Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was. And he was a Hanafi. You had Imam al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan. Today my young friends talk a lot about, Sahih Hadith amongst themselves. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan was the one that was the founder of this science. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan was the one that founded this science of what is a Sahih Hadith. Imam al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. He is that person that the great Ahmad ibn Hanbal, alayhi rahmah, with regards to Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, he said, I swear by Allah, we have never seen a man like Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan when it came to ilm hadith, when it came to the knowledge of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You had Makki ibn Ibrahim. Makki ibn Ibrahim was a Hanafi. Who was Makki ibn Ibrahim? Makki ibn Ibrahim was the teacher of Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari's book, the Sahih, has 22 thulathiyat inside it. It's got this virtue that it has 22 thulathiyat. What is a thulathiyat? It means that between Imam Bukhari and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in 22 hadiths, there are only 3 links between Imam Bukhari and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Out of these 22 chains, 22 hadiths, Imam Bukhari has related half of them, 11 of them, through the chain of Makki ibn Ibrahim, who was a Hanafi. You had Yahya ibn Ma'in, the Muhaddith, and the Imam of al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. He was a Hanafi. He was that Muhaddith that inherited 1,050,000 dirhams when his father died. He spent every single penny acquiring the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so that Yahya ibn Ma'in even had to sell his shoes when the time came, just so that he could buy paper and write down the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the same Yahya ibn Ma'in that made this claim. He said, with my hands I have written 1 million hadith. He was the teacher of the great Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari took hadith from him. Imam Muslim took hadith from him. Imam Abu Dawud took hadith from him. And the great Ahmad ibn Hanbal took hadith from him. And when he died, he was carried on the same stretcher on which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was carried. And as they took him to his grave to bury him, the people that were walking around him, the words that were flowing from their lips were, Haza azab an Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam al-kizb. This is the man that would remove the lies that were attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My friends, this is an exhaustive list. I can spend my 1 hour just telling you of great masters who followed the school of thought of Abu Haneefa. From laymen to great masters, they followed the fiqh of Abu Haneefa and have been doing so for the last 1300 years, and they will do so for years to come. And nobody can do anything about this. Why? Because this is what we call qabuliyat. This is what's called acceptance. Whether this pleases you or whether it displeases someone, whether it brings a smile on somebody's face or whether it doesn't, there is no one within this universe that can do anything about this other than Allah and Allah Himself. You know, hundreds of years ago, Hassan ibn Sulaiman commentating on the hadith, لا تقوم الساعة حتى يظهر العلم. He said that the final hour will not come till knowledge will appear. Hundreds of years ago, commentating on this hadith, he said that the knowledge referred to in this hadith is the knowledge of Abu Haneefa. Hassan ibn Sulaiman, hundreds of years ago, he said our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took his knowledge from Allah, the Sahaba from Rasulullah, the Tabi'een from the Sahaba, and then it was the Abu Haneefa and his companions that took their knowledge from the Tabi'een, whether it pleases anyone or whether it displeases them. So he was stating a fact, and that was hundreds of years ago. My friends, if he could have made a mistake a few hundred years ago, by the grace of Allah, this is what has been witnessed for the last 1300 years, and there is no room for error. And look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him in. You know, when Allah wants to give somebody acceptance, then my friends, his fortune will change overnight. You know, like Umar, he was going to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And when Allah gave the acceptance, look how Allah changed it overnight. Imam Abu Haneefa rahmatullah alayhi was from amongst the Tabi'een. Born in the 80th year of Hijrah in Kufa, he was from amongst the Tabi'een, those people regarding which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, خَيْرُ الْقُرُونِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. And not only was he a Tabi'i, he was from amongst those particular group of Tabi'i, regarding which the Quran says in the 11th juz, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي تَحْتَ الْأَنْهَارِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. Those who follow the Muhajirin Ansar with sincerity, those who follow the former from amongst the Muhajirin and Ansar with sincerity, Allah is pleased with them and they with Allah, and Allah has prepared for them gardens under which rivers flow, in which they will remain forever and ever. That is the ultimate success. You know, the remarkable thing is, with Imam Abu Haneefa rahmatullah alayhi, you will find